Good morning, April Jackson here on a Saturday morning. We are here again for another episode of Alterations in Real Time. I'd like to welcome anyone who is watching live. If you are watching live, please do let me know in the comments, and my assistant will let me know that you're there. So, to get the day started, I wanted to give you a bit of an insight of what we're going to be working on today. Here, this is a wedding dress that I picked up at a secondhand store for, can you turn that volume down there? Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, thank you, love. This is a wedding dress that I picked up at a secondhand store. It still had the tags on it, and it was on sale for $50. I thought it was a great buy. I really liked it, so I took it home. And what I'd like to do is show you some of the elements on this dress that I liked and some of the elements that I did not like. My focus for this dress now and for us today is I want to make this dress of better quality. My goal is to make it so that when this dress is finished, it'll be sellable. When I first saw it at the secondhand store, what kind of crossed my mind was, why is it there? Brand new wedding dress, still has tags. Why is it at the secondhand store? It could be somebody had purchased it for a wedding and something happened, the wedding didn't happen. Sometimes too, people will purchase a dress and then change their mind and get another dress. I brought the dress to the studio and began examining it. And some of the elements from the dress gave me clues as to why this gown was at the secondhand store. If we were to do nothing to this dress and just send it back to the secondhand store, chances are it's going to end up as a Halloween costume, and then it'll get ruined and it's going to end up in the landfill. As it is, I personally do not feel it is suitable as a wedding dress. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of the points as to why I say that. And starting today, we are going to make some alterations to the gown that will increase its quality, therefore making it more saleable. And my goal then will be to put it on Marketplace or a wedding site and see what we can get, what kind of a profit we can make out of this. The dress I found comes from a company called Lulu's, and I was able to find the exact dress on their wedding site. The dress retails for $289 if I am correct. And it's pretty. To me, it screams destination wedding. This particular dress is considered just a small. Someone in a size 6 to 8, a very petite bride, will be wearing this dress. Another element of this dress is we have a halter, and it's backless, and the waist on this dress is very tiny. Whoever's wearing this dress also will not probably have a really ample bust line. You cannot wear any sort of a bra with this style of dress. Let me see. I want to show you a bit of the construction of this dress. We have an outer lace that has some sequin and more sequin detail already on top. We have the outer lace sewn to a stretch lining, and it is sewn together along the whole seams, up and down the whole body, so it acts as one. This is our first and second layer, and inside we have one more lining, which is a stretch. The same construction is at the top. in our bodice. Our bodice has one little row of boning at the very side back panel, and there is no other boning and no other shaping, anything with this dress originally. There's no cups in here. And one of my main concerns with that, it's hard for you to see here, I don't think you can, but when I hold up the dress like this, I can see through it. I can see the lace detail. With those few layers, it's too see-through. A dress like this, especially on the top, and if you're not wearing a bra, you're going to want more structure to keep it perfectly straight, as well as you're going to want that extra structure just for security reasons. If you're not going to have any kind of undergarments, you're going to want to be able to put this dress on, and that's it, and you're ready for the wedding. You want to be sure that you've got good coverage on the front, and that if there's light behind you, they can't see through your dress. Nobody wants to have, be able to see where your legs are because the dress is so sheer. These are the elements we're going to work on, and I know you might be thinking, that's a big job. It is, but it isn't. How we're going to tackle this, we're going to initially start by separating the bodice from the skirt. One of the reasons I'm doing that, first of all, it makes it easier to work with. That is how the bodice and the skirt is constructed. The bodice is fully constructed, tucked inside, and it's sandwiched between the outer material and the lining of the skirt. I also had a little bit of an idea. If somebody is this petite wearing this type of dress, why not make it a two-piece? My thinking for that is twofold. I love versatility when it comes to any kind of garment, and how the bride could use this. They could wear the dress combined with both the skirt and the top. After the main wedding ceremony, remove the skirt, keep the top with a pair of pants. There's an option to switch it out that way. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that just for that a little added versatility. Yeah, and it's just going to allow it, make it a little easier for us to work with. And the whole concept is that we're going to increase the quality. I do have here, I want to show you what we're working with to add to this dress. To start, I have some more of like a drapey lining. It's similar to what it's made of. It has a bit of stretch, but for the bodice, I'm actually going to add interfacing to my lining piece to give it a little bit more body so it doesn't stretch so much, and so that we can add our boning to that new layer. I have cups, which we're going to be putting right inside the dress. The cups that I use here have a little bit of a gel. I prefer this style of bust cup because when a bride is wearing a dress and we don't have any bra or undergarments, we don't have anything, even if we have a petite bust, we still have nothing holding it up. This gives us a little bit more shape and some support. Not today, but the next time we will be covering these with our knit lining. I do have boning. I just have 1/4 inch Ridgeline boning. It's mainly for shaping the dress and keeping it smooth. As I mentioned, anyone wearing this dress will not be having a heavy bust because it's such a tiny, petite outfit, and so this Ridgeline is going to hold the material and keep the structure that we require. I'm going to be cutting with my rotary cutter, and I have my scissors. So I think the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start by separating the bodice from the skirt. This way we can work with just the bodice at this time, because after that is done, we are actually going to separate the layers of the lining, so we can use the lining that is already within the dress as a pattern. And as I'm looking at this, the dress has obviously been tried on. There's makeup on the collar. Within here, there's some snags on this lining. So in trying to make this dress add the value, I might end up just replacing this lining as well. I have lots of my lining that we're going to be switching it out with. And the whole concept is, when I have a bride come and try this on, I don't want them to see any snags, I don't want them to see any stains. I want it to feel like a brand new dress. A lot of brides will try and sell their wedding dresses, and it's an amazing concept because, well, I just wear it once. But there is the reality that as a bride, you don't necessarily want to be feeling like you're wearing somebody else's dress. You don't want to feel like, oh, when I put this dress on, I can see there's makeup from somebody else. You want the gown to feel like this is your dress. So we're going to do whatever we need in order to make it like that. Let's begin at the beginning then. The first steps I'm going to take, we have waistline seam, zipper at the back of the skirt. I'm going to be removing our hooks at the waist, and using a razor blade, I'm going to be separating the skirt layer, the lining and the outer material, which in turn will release my bodice. So let's begin there. Out of her way, and we have a razor blade here. This is a project that will certainly take a couple of weeks. So we're going to do the first part this week, and next month, on about our second weekend, we will continue with this project. I'm using my razor blade. First thing I'm going to do is get a seam started at my waistband. It's a cute dress, and I love the lace, but I can even think of some other steps that I can take that will increase the value and make it even just more valuable than what it is. Give it a bit more interest. I like this waistline piece, but if we are going to be making a two-piece, I'm going to be adding a small, almost like a binding that can be flipped up inside. So when the bride wears the dress as a one piece, that we can make sure the skirt and the top connect securely. So we'll have like a little band for that, but we also want that band to disappear so that the bride has the option to wear the two pieces and possibly show her midriff. I know it's a wedding, but that's still a thing that people like to try. And being honest, if I was this tiny, I'd be showing my midriff too. All right. Now that I've got this rolling, using my blade to separate the bodice, and you can see how it's easily coming apart. My goal is to have only 4 hours into this dress, and my materials, we have basically, I'm going to say $20 in materials, unless I want to add some bridal trim. Then I will add that, and that will increase the value of it. But first we're just going to start with this aspect, getting it so it's not so see-through, and adding the boning and shaping. For anyone who will be watching this video, whether it's now or in the future, do you use a razor blade for opening up any seams, removing any detailings? Is it something that you feel comfortable doing? Or are you still working on getting that confidence? As I considered how I was going to treat the bodice of this dress, I contemplated adding an interfacing to my material that was more of a not a woven, but a non-woven, so it would have a little bit more stretch and give. I contemplated that because generally this material does have a little bit of stretch and give to it. Not a lot, but a little bit. And with that in mind, I was wondering, you know, is that something we want to maintain? But realistically, the skirt of the dress does not stretch, as well as the waistline is very firm. There's no stretch to it. So maintaining that non-stretch element will allow us to use a better quality interfacing, and when we have that nice smooth structure, it'll complement the dress more than if our dress was stretchy. One of the things I don't like about this dress with the material, it looks cheap. I can see my seam allowances. I don't know if that's something you can see. If I bring it closer, I can see where my seam allowance is. And then where there's skin, I can see the shadow. And that is one of the elements that we want to fix. We don't want that. We want everything to be a nice creamy white color with no dark shadows. Okay. I'm going to lift up my zipper area here. This zipper top as well has makeup, or it just looks like from people trying it on, it's got a stain. So when it's all said and done, we are going to make sure this is lightly cleaned up and will look perfect for whoever decides to wear this dress. The idea of making it a two-piece, another reason why I love that is this top is very cute. After your wedding, if somebody wants to be able to wear this afterwards with jeans, that's a great option for them. Okay, there we go. We have the skirt removed. We are not going to do anything with our skirt today. We will deal with our skirt the next time we focus on this alteration. So I am going to set it aside, and we are going to focus solely on our bodice today. So I'm going to set this up here. And now we're going to look at our bodice and where we're at. Our collar, there's a button missing, so that's going to be fixed. Have our collar, So our next step, we are going to remove the collar, and then we are going to take apart, let me see, is this basted? Yeah, there's a light basting there. Get something to open that up. There we go. So you can see how this is constructed. All right. Because this material that they have used for their lining is very cheap. You might think a $289 wedding dress, that's US. You'd think you'd get a better quality of material, but that's not always the case. This is actually a very cheap material. And this type of knit, when it does stretch, you can get a run in it. So you're going to want to be very careful if you were just doing an alteration with this. You're not going to want to be pulling it. You're going to want to make sure that you open up areas as much as you can to do your work so that you're not working in a small area. Because if I was to pull this right here, I'd get a run right up onto my good material, and we don't want that. Okay, loosen up the bottom here, and then I can figure out my next step. This little piece of boning, this little in the middle of nowhere on this back piece, it's, for me, it's like one of those, almost like an afterthought. I don't even know why they even put it in there. It's pretty useless at this point. Because we are going to make this a two-piece, what I'm going to have to decide is what method do I want to choose to close off the back at the bottom of the halter. It was attached originally to the zipper, but that's not going to be there now. I would think actually a nice ribbon would be nice. Tie that up. Gives a little bit more versatility for sizing. If the person is a little thicker in the waist, they can still keep that look and just do up with the lacing at the back. That's probably what I will choose. You have to remember that this dress is meant, from the styling, I would see it as a beach wedding. You're going to have a destination wedding. It's not something you're going to be wearing necessarily any other time. Not to say that you can't wear it any other time, but you know what I mean. All right. I'm just pulling out my basting stitches so I can separate the lining. Oh, there's still a little bit more, so let's get that going. There we go. If this was a woven material, I would have just ripped out the stitching, but we cannot do that with this. All right. So I now have the outer lace, which is joined with the lining. That's going to remain. And then we have our stretch lining here. And I'm going to now take the stretch lining apart. First, we'll take off our collar. Reason being is this is one of would be our last origins where we were working at. So when we put everything back together and we want a nice clean finish on this bottom hem, we will be pulling all that through our collar opening, getting that all nice and clean the way we want it, and then putting the collar back on. To close that up, so there's top stitching right here. And you can see the lace, and what they had done was they stitched in the ditch in that seam to hold that down. We're going to use a blade to lift that up. Because this piece has makeup on it, I will probably take the time to wash this, just hand wash it with a little bit of soap and water. Make sure it's nice and clean before we put it back on. Okay, so I've lifted up the lining, and now it is still attached at the front collar, so I'm going to use my blade to release that. Our collar is removed. We're going to set that aside for now. And now our lining and our outer material is basted at the neckline. We're going to unbaste that stitching as well. Quick way to remove basting. Just pick every about maybe 5 or 6 stitches. Give it a little bit of a pull, and then your basting will come out nicely. All right. The next step I'm going to be working on is taking apart my lining. Now we're going to take it apart, which will be at the side seams from the neck. That will be running along under the arm. And my goal for when taking this apart is I'm going to want to make sure I'm not stretching the lining, because the outer material and its lining doesn't stretch. If I stretch my lining too much and then put it back together, it's going to be too big. It's another reason why I question why they even used a stretch material for their lining on the inside. If you don't need everything to stretch, I don't understand why they would have something stretchy and then put it along something that's not stretchy. Could also just be, you know, this is what they had and it's inexpensive, so they chose this. I don't know what their thinking is, but we are going to work with what they've got. So now I'm going to run my blade along the seam, which is where the lining is joined with the outer material, and get it going. There we go. This seam originally had been sewn and then edge stitched so that the lining doesn't peek out. Yeah, I don't know why they use this stretchy material. But when it's all said and done, we are going to have a better quality product. I have a question for anyone who will be watching this, whether they're watching now or in the future. Is bridal something that you would consider specializing in for your alterations? Is it something you might consider? You just might be contemplating, add with what you already do, or is it something you just want to maybe just that's all you do? Just kind of curious as to who will be interested in doing bridal wear. It's definitely a specialty area. What's awesome with doing just bridal wear, should you choose to do that, yes, it is a bit more, or it can seem a bit more complex, but you only have to focus on one area of clothing. If you decide to do formal and bridal wear, especially just for women, then you only have to focus and learn alterations on those particular garments. You can bypass learning menswear and bypass knowing how to hem suit sleeves, winter coats, anything like that. That's one of the bonuses of specializing in a particular area. It's almost like a doctor who focuses on one part of the human anatomy. They do have to have an idea as to, of some things, but they can just focus most of their learning and their attention on one specific specialty. Bridal wear also, and formal wear, encompasses much more than just weddings as well. There are proms and graduations, and depending on where you live, there's all kinds of events that require fancy clothing. Some elements on this dress that we will be replacing. I'll be using a new one, I think, yes. Where the lining and the other material are joined at the upper seam here, there is an invisible elastic. I thought it might have been more of a stabilizer, but it's actually an elastic. So I'm still going to be deciding whether I'm going to replace this elastic. Since we are making our bodice not so stretchy, I think we can eliminate the elastic and just have the stability of a clean, tight seam across, which will go from the neck over the bust and then along the back. So I will decide how I'm going to handle that. Because this little piece anyways, it's seen better days. I will not be putting that in the first place. Let's remove that from both of our seams. This is a little stretchy. I do not want to stretch that anymore. I want to make sure it maintains its original sizing, so we're going to keep that there. And let me see. Yes. Okay. And this is our lining separated. I'm going to unseparate that, press it flat, and this is what we're going to use as our pattern to remake the pieces. There we go. It's into that seam. Our boning, we have a little bit of boning that is in the where this side back seam joins. Let's get that out. First thing we're going to do, oh, there we go. There's our boning. Came out right there. I'm not even keeping that particular boning. We will not be reusing it, but this is a good piece of boning. We will keep that. It's not broken, so we'll keep that for another project. Anyone who sews knows that sometimes you just don't want to throw certain things away. As soon as you throw it away, you're going to wish you had it. Okay. First thing I'm doing is the stitching that was creating the casing for my boning. And now I'm just going to pull out my stitches. because I am going to replace, yes, because I'm going to replace, no, I'm not, changed my mind. I'm going to be reusing this piece. This is actually going to be the material that's going to be on the inside of my layers. It will be sandwiched between my outer material and my new lining. The interfacing will go onto here. Even though this has a few snags, because that's going to be sandwiched, no one's going to see that. And I can make use of this piece without having to throw it away. So that's going to be a great bonus for us. So I'm glad I thought of that. So we will take apart all our pieces. We're still going to need to take apart all our pieces so we can add our interfacing. So let's separate all our pieces. If you do need to put some pins or some small markings on to designate which is a top piece, which is the front of a material, please do so. You don't want to get them all separated and then find out you can't figure out how to put the puzzle back together. Yeah, I'll show you here too that we're already getting those runs. This is our tiny, tiny little back piece from the back, and you can see that we've already got some runs in there. See in that bottom? That's that cheap, cheap material. So I'm going to lay this here with the wrong side up for now, just so I know which sides are up and down. And then I'm going to probably fuse these onto my interfacing. Put that there for now. Get the other side out. Same with the other side. Remove my top stitching. This is one of those projects, like the one we tackled last week, that we do quite a bit up at the table. Once we have all this prep work done, we will be moving to the machine and do a bit there, but then we're going to be back here. Okay, yeah, this is really running. Move our other dress hanger, this nice little ribbon. We'll set those aside. We'll put them with our collar. Next piece I'm going to be taking out will be my side front. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to this dress, is there? There's only, you have a center, side bust, and then this little triangle at the very back. Like I mentioned, this dress is going to be for someone very tiny. When I lay out my pattern pieces on the new material, and I'll already have my interfacing adhered to the new material before I cut it out, I will actually be, make sure I take note of the seam allowances that they have, because I'm going to have to make sure I put exactly those seam allowances back in. This is a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so that when everything goes back together, we get the same sizing. our center front. I'm going to take this particular piece that has our lining and our lace and lining, the main material, set it aside. Give this a little bit of a press. I've decided I'm going to add my interfacing to this layer of lining, which will in turn become the lining that will be holding our boning and any detailing like that. And when I make a new lining out of a new material, it too will have interfacing. My choice for doing that is the fact that this does not stretch, so that I don't want any aspect of the rest of my bodice to be stretchy. It'll just make it so much more challenging to put back together. And I'm going to fuse the interfacing first onto the pieces that I currently have. So I'm going to smooth them out first. I had watched a fellow sewist, and they were talking about how there's a difference between pressing and ironing. And when we're working with material like this that can stretch, we definitely want to just press our iron down. We don't want to be pushing and pulling the weight of the iron across the material, because that's going to distort the material, cause it to be lighter in some areas, and we don't want that. Okay, so center that. I haven't decided yet how. Like that. When we do add our interfacing, we're going to want to make sure that everything's lying on grain in the right directions. Here. Bust area. When cutting out patterns and pattern pieces, it is a common practice for the instructions on the pattern for you to be instructed to cut out this out of material, cut this piece out of your lining, then cut a piece out of your interfacing. That is a lot of individual piece cutting. What I like to do is I will adhere my interfacing to those pieces in advance and then work the material as one. Just a little bit more time saving, but also I find occasionally that it just doesn't line up as perfect. So I just like treating it as one material. My wrong sides of this lining facing up. What I'm going to do at this point is get a piece of material and lie it on my table so it protects my overall cutting board. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to be piecing my interfacing, and when I lay my interfacing down on my pieces so they adhere, I don't want to get any interfacing glue on my table, so this will protect my table. I'm going to take my centerpiece, center front, down like that. No stretching, just make it nice. Okay. And then take my side bust. I'm laying these down so that the wrong sides of these pieces are facing up. That's the side that's going to be adhered to my interfacing. And let's take side pieces here. Make sure we get it one right way. That's going to go here. All right. I'm going to take my fusible interfacing. This is a woven, so let me show you. This is the side that has the glue on it. It's the rougher side. It's woven in that it's, you know, has strings going in different directions, up and down, and it doesn't stretch. So my goal is to make sure if this was lying on a pattern, we want the grain lines, the design lines going in the right direction. So I'm going to lay this same thing with the grain lines going proper on top of my pieces. Don't want to move anything. Okay, let's switch that around this way because I can catch it all. There we go. There we go. And as I begin to adhere this down, I'm not necessarily going to take my iron and fuse it to everything. I'm just going to kind of keep it, I can see my pieces through the interfacing. So I'm going to do this first, just kind of keep it in the center of my pattern pieces. To get, it's almost like a basting. It's just a light adhesion to these pieces. Okay, there. And here. So my goal now is as I lift up my interfacing, I want my material to be basted to it. Perfect. Lift that up. I'll show you what I got. Put this back away. This is the cloth that I used for tash, just like that. I would not use that as a regular press cloth because now I wouldn't want to get that glue on anything. Now, when I flip to the right side, I'm going to clean up some of my threads that are here now, and my pieces are fused to my interfacing like this. And now I can cut those out. All right. So we're going to do that. I think I might actually do it here with my rotary cutter, so I'll get that out. There. And then I'm going to clean up the threads that are left here. Get my piece cutter. Perfect. I will give this a really good press once I get this all cut out. So I'm going to have to fix that after. There we go. There you go, just use my scissors. With my rotary cutter has nick in it, and I really don't care to use it at this point. Just use the scissors. these little scraps that have still have some of the glue. These are not big enough for me to do a lot with, but what I do keep them for is I do have a separate little bag that I put them in for when I'm patching jeans. And they come in handy for when we're doing little projects like that. So my next step is I want to get rid of some of these leftover threads. I'm not concerned about getting every single thread because this layer is the layer that will be on the inside, sandwiched between the outer material and the lining, so no one's going to see that anyways. But we just want to make sure that there's no added bulk. Good, and here, we'll get some of that. All right. So now what I'm going to do is flip my material and the lining and the interfacing over so that now I want to be able to press my iron directly to the interfacing so that it gets a good fuse onto the lining material. And I will be using this as my pattern to cut out the second layer, which will be the lining layer. It will also have interfacing that will separate this layer from the client, and it will be the layer that will show on the inside of the gown. That layer also will be the new layer, which will make the dress look newer. All right. We've got that adhesion there. I'm not sure if you can see, but this is another reason this particular, we have some, dirt from the dress being tried on. That's our center, the two side fronts, and the two little tiny pieces that make up the back. Set this aside, and I'm going to adhere interfacing to my replacement material, remember I got here, and adhere the interfacing to it first and then cut out my pieces. Okay, let's see what we got here. Good material, a good side. Do you recall that how I set this? There we go, that's a good side. So a bit of a sparkle. And perfect. Lay that down. Yep. As I lay this out, because this is a bit of a knit, I want to make sure that it's not stretching any too far in any one direction. All right. And I think I can do that. Whenever I do a project like this, I'm laying my lining, I'm interfacing with the sticky side towards the material. I want to make sure that I'm not wasting areas. So that's why I'm kind of seeing which areas I can piece and get to where I need it. That would go there. That one can go here, and then that one can go there, and that other piece can go up here and here. Perfect. So, whenever you're adhering white interfacing to anything, always make sure any little strings and things like that stay out of your layers, because those will definitely show once the wedding dress has been constructed. You'll see little flaws like that where strings and markings are caught between the layers. We want to make sure we avoid those as we create. Good nicely. Scrap pile, and let's layer pieces on. our side bust. Other side. Perfect. And our two little back pieces. There. Make sure it's in nicely, and I'll slide that over. Okay. Pull that down. I will slide this onto here now because I want to use my rotary cutter to cut this piece of these out. It's a little loose. Let's get it tightened up. One. Be much easier if my cutter didn't have a nick in it, but I didn't notice that till now, so I'm not going to worry about that. Just keep on going, and I will fix that for my next project. Another last piece. I'm happy with my decision to recut these, especially the main lining, because it's really going to upgrade the dress and just give it that brand new look and feel. I have enough lining that we are going to cut a second layer for the skirt as well when we do that aspect. So it too will have the extra layer so we can't see through so much and just have that newness. Oh, nice. This is the brand new material, so that's going to look really nice when it's all done. For now, I'm going to separate my interfacing and my lining. Put my interfacing away for now. Make sure I'm not throwing away any pieces that I need. Not that I've ever done that. we are going to begin reconstructing our bodice, and the first step we're going to do is we are going to put the internal layer together first. This is the original material that has the knit and interfacing, has the runs on it, so I don't really care because it will be inside. I need to get this puzzle into place the way that I need, set my other pieces aside. There, and there. And that's the front. So next we're going to go to the sewing machine. We're going to sew these seams, get the boning attached to this, put the good lining together just the same, and then we are going to put this puzzle back together. I need one more piece. And then we can start putting the bodice back together with the good material. And I need to decide how I'm going to finish off the bottom. I'm actually going to just do a finished seam, but I am going to have to put make a piece, a band with interfacing on this knit. So before I go too far, I want to make sure I have that ready to go. Okay, this goes in this. Or is it this side like that? That one goes there and there. Just making sure, get everything going the right way. I'll just flip that like that so I know that's there and that's there. And set that aside. That there and that there. And then those will go to the machine. I am going to take a piece of it and attach another band of interfacing to it, and I'm going to need this piece long enough that it is the same length that will go around the waist. Perfect, so that will work there. Just double checking that. Piece of the interfacing. Let me find a piece that I can cut into a band. There we go, that'll be perfect. Make sure my fabric is laying proper, and like the rain. I'm going to do this here to here. Right. Let's do it a little bit with that iron. Basting it. The interfacing does have this one has been torn, so it's along the grain line. I'll work with that. Set this aside. Actually, done. And I'm going to cut myself a band. I'm not going to worry about what dimensions right now. I just want to make sure that it's going to be folded in half. Half an inch is going to go into the seam allowance, and then I'll probably have about 3/4 of an inch sticking out below. So 3/4 of an inch and half an inch is 1 1/4, 2.5 inches is about what I'm going to be needing for that width. Draw on here. Make sure it's straight across. I'd rather have more than not enough. Adjust that as I need. Okay. So, side, throw away that last little bit there. This way for another project. And I'm going to fold this in half, interfacing side together. Bit of a press, so I can have my band there and ready, and we'll look at that as we're finishing off the project. That's what we're going to do now. this side for now. I'm going to move the camera around so that you can see the sewing machine, and we're going to move to the machine. We're at the sewing machine. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take our pieces, and this will be the internal lining. We're going to get it all sewn back together on the original lines. So we have right sides together. This is the side seam. I'm going to get that into there. We're using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So right there. Turn on, ready to go. Make sure my settings. Oh boy, I'm going to turn that off. There we go. I'll show you what I'm doing. So this is our side seam. That's the whole back panel. And we've got that sewn. We're going to do the other side. This is that internal lining which will contain our just double check it. This is the lining that will contain our interface seam and the boning. There we go. Oh, well, that didn't work out. Something that broke. Let's fix that. Center panel, and it's going to join up with our bust area. So I know it does line up, so I'm going to start at the very top. And as this seam gets sewn to here, we're going to keep pivoting till we get to the very bottom, and that all lines up. We have this really curvy seam lining up with this slightly curved, and that's how we're going to get that nice bust shape. Raw edges at the top. We go front and back to secure. Good there. So now we have that seam there lined up here and all the way down to here. Do the same with this. My only difference is I'm going to be working from the bottom up. Raw edges even. So now that is generally our whole bodice, the inner lining. And what I want to tackle at this point then now, we will be adding our boning. Our boning will be getting adhered right to this, and I'm going to be opening out our seam allowance and sewing our boning centered right on top of this seam. What I like to do with my boning is this. We need to cover the sharp edges, so I do have some material here, some scraps, and what I will do is we will be making some, just this covers that will cover the ends of the boning. I'm going to just get some of this cut from. And depending on how wide your boning is, will depend on how wide these ends will be. Let's see, I'll be cutting some more. Flip it like this, fold it in half, and then I'll go over top of my boning edge, like that. I'm going to flip it over top. And I'm going to do a row of stitching across to secure it, and then I can trim that up afterwards. So first of all, I'm going to just there, pull that over. Our main goal is we do not want this boning poking your client. So I've got that little piece sewn on there. Doesn't look so glamorous right now, but now we can cut that just like that to trim that up. We take this particular boning piece, we're going to lie it on our seam, and whenever you're putting boning on a particular seam, this is our side seam, the boning has to go within the seam allowance. So we're going to have a seam allowance at the underarm. So this is going to be about 3/4 of an inch below that raw edge, and it's going to end about 3/4 of an inch from this raw edge. So we do not want that boning getting caught into our seams. It just needs to fall within that area, and so it helps to hold that in place. So now I know I need 2 of these. I'm going to cut another one of those right now, and then I'm going to get my ends covered on both of those. Do that. There. Okay, I'm going to cut that off right now, and then finish covering my ends while I'm on this piece. I'm going to use this little piece of scrap that I trimmed off just now. Finish my other end on this small, tiny piece. Run back and forth just to secure it. There we go. And then just clean up the edges by trimming that. Whoops. And this little piece is ready to go. Do the same to my other piece, which, oh, there we go. To the other side. All these little puzzle pieces have to get back together. I'm going to do my second piece of boning. Just the same. Flip this over and flip this over the edge to cover the pokey edge. Secure it with some stitches back and forth. There we go. And okay. Okay. I'm going to do this for all my boning pieces right now, just so I can have them all done and ready to go on to the garment. My second piece of boning is going to go along the princess bust seam. Same thing, about 3/4 of an inch from the raw edge. It's going to go right along that seam, and it's going to end 3/4 of an inch from the next raw edge. Let's get that cut to exactly the same, and then we're going to cover those ends, and then everything will be ready to be applied to this. material in half. The reason I'm flipping my material in half too is this is like really thin. So I just want to make sure that our edges are covered well and nothing's going to be poking and being uncomfortable for the bride. Like we mentioned earlier, the bride's probably just going to be wearing this dress with no other undergarments. So we want to make sure that there's no hot spots of any area that's going to be irritating her skin, especially on our wedding day. The other end, just do a quick little tap to hold. Now, as I'm reconstructing this particular wedding dress, you might be thinking that how do we do this if we're working on a dress and we're just adding new boning? First thing we're going to want to make sure is we just make sure we can get into the area well enough. We don't want to be working through a tiny, tiny hole within your garment. Because you can imagine when we're going to be laying on this boning, imagine trying to work with the garment still put together and us trying to get into a tiny hole in the lining to get the interfacing lifted up and the boning in place. We are going to want to make sure that we have ample room to work. And depending on what we're doing with the rest of the garment, there has been times where I would remove the whole, or at least release most of the skirt so that I can freely get inside and do what I need to do. All right, I have my bonings ready to go in. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my seam allowances right here. I am going to lay my boning down onto there, center it so that it's within my the seams that it's not going to get caught in my bottom or my top seam here. And I'm going to run a row of stitching on each side of my boning to hold that into place. Just keeping it centered on my lining. I'm going to get a bit smaller stitch for this. This is a skinnier boning. You might think, why don't I just do one row down the center? And the reason I will not do that is because that will just cause the seam, it'll twist. I want this to lay nice and flat. So doing a row of stitching along both sides will cause that to lie nice and flat, like there. And we can see how that's nice and flat there. Let me get that. There. Going to add my boning to the other little back piece. Whoops. Then my seam allowances. Secure it top and bottom, centered on my seam. And so down one side. Now that boning, and now the other side. And you have to remember that this particular panel will be sandwiched between my outer material and my good lining. So we're not going to see any of this. Next we're going to do the same. We're going to open out our bust seam from the other side, and we're going to lay that boning and we're going to lay it on to that little curved seam. Opening up that seam, going to lay my boning into the center. Doesn't matter whether you sew on the right or the left side of your boning first, just make sure your seam is flat open. Pressing open the seam allowance with your fingers and making sure everything's smooth underneath. the boning will bend to go to and fall along the seam. The boning has a nice movement with that. So you have one row of stitching already there in the bust. And I'm going to do the other row to hold the other side down. And there's my first bust. My main concern right now is I'm making sure I'm getting my boning going all in the same direction. When this is on the bride, this section, I'm going to want this section facing the outside of the garment because I want this nice clean edge facing out. So I just want to make sure that my boning and everything's getting laid in the same direction. I'm not having one set of boning sewn down like this and one with it curling up. Right in the center of my seam, place it aside, put out the seam allowance. Down there. So now I have my inner lining and with the boning all set and ready to go. That layer. And remember, this was constructed from the original material that was within the dress, so we're not making waste of anything. I'm going to set that aside, and now I'm going to grab the good lining. This is our good lining. And we're going to put this together. It won't have any boning with it, just the lining itself. Okay. Start with our back seams. This is actually our side seams. Continuing that 1/2 inch seam allowance that was originally on the garment. Right sides together. Now we're going to do our bust curve seam. Start at the top on this side. is our good lining. I have to put our hangers into here. I just remembered that, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to release some of our stitching just from here to here on the two side seams so I can get our hangers in. I wouldn't have to do that if I had remembered, but that's okay, it's not the end of the world. Just release a little bit to get that in. There we go. I like this lining material much better than the original. It actually feels really soft, so I think it's going to be really nice against someone's skin. And especially if this is going to be a destination or a beach wedding, it could be a little warmer, so we want to make sure that our bride is nice and comfortable. My main concern is getting my hangers into my seam allowance, but I want it to be at the same location on both sides. I'll get one established first, cut into here, put it down maybe about 1.25 inches. My main concern is I don't want it showing at the top. I don't want it showing anywhere. I don't like the hangers showing anywhere, but we do need to make sure that they're in the garment, because otherwise the bride won't be able to hang up the dress at all. And then we won't be able to hang up the dress to showcase it. There we go. Let's get that seam back and get that cut in. And we'll extra stitching over the hanger. There we go. That's better now. We got that hanger in. So I will measure that depth from here to here and make sure it's in the same spot on the other seam. I'll just flip that over. And then I can put a nice little snip in the seam allowance where the hanger will be on this side. Another hanger, make sure it's lying nice and smooth. It's a little detail, but I don't like it when the hangers get all twisted. If you're going to do something, you're going to do it right. I'm going to lay my hanger onto these two pieces so that's in the same position, and we sew that seam, making sure the hanger is nice and secure. All right, we have our good lining. Our next step is we will be going to the iron and pressing this seam open. While we're at the machine, the first thing I'd like to do though is now I would like to take my inner lining here and the good lining, and we are going to first baste the inner lining onto the outer material so that it is secured. All right. I have my material, the lace with the cheap lining. I do not like how they've done that, but we're going to spruce that up a little bit after. My main concern now is when I take this piece of material, I want it facing so that this nice smooth edge is facing out. I do not want to have triple seams and have this rough area facing out, because this will begin to show. So I want to put my good material on top with this nice smooth side facing up. That is my reasoning for that. And we are going to baste the outer material to this new layer of lining along the underarm edge here and on the bottom edge here and on all our edges so that it's lying nice and smooth. Making sure our seams are all lined up. Let me see. All right. I want to make sure too that on the original garment, they have their seam allowances pressed to the inside. I do want to maintain that. Just making sure all the seam allowances and everything are going in the right direction. So I'm going to now rebaste, bigger stitch, the good outer material to the new shaping inner lining that we just created. And this base, we're just going to all that around the outside, and we are going to make sure we stay within the seam allowance. I'm double checking, making sure seams are lined up as they need be. Right. You recall when we took this apart, there was an elastic in this. We are not putting that elastic back in now. One of the reasons the elastic was in there was to help hold the shape, because this seam would have stretched. We have interfacing now, giving it good body, so I am not going to be doing that. I'm not going to be concerned about that at this point. Do my neckline. And my string broke again for some reason. Let's just fix that. Just keeping track of the time. My goal here is to at least get the bodice re-put back together at the one edge. So we have another 20 minutes. I want you to be able to see how this is looking with the interfacing to it, and the fact that now we do have our boning layer in our garment now too. What I like is, first of all, what I don't like, I don't know if you can see this, their original, the way they had constructed this, we have, like I said, the lace and then lining underneath, and this underlining is really wrinkly, and I do not like that. That's just, to me, is not bridal material. So my goal will be, once I get my, the layer that's going to give it all the body, once it's all together, my goal is to have it holding everything together so that we're going to have a nice smooth, we're going to have like the cup is going to be in here, which is going to smooth that out, and we're going to have no wrinkles anywhere. The interfacing is going to keep all my seams nice and straight and nice and taut, but we don't want any of those wrinkles. Those are very cheap looking. To base the other seam. The other, this will be actually like my shoulder seam, goes from the neck down. It's laying right. So what I'm doing first is I'm doing basting these two from the neck to underarm to the back first. And then I will make sure everything's lined up elsewhere before I do any more basting. The last thing we want to do is close this all up and find out that there's areas puckering inside, and we have to open it up again. There we go. from our neck down along the front, everything nice and basted. We have the neckline, and now we're going to make sure everything's lying nice and smooth this way, and make sure everything's lined up nicely that way before we actually put that into place. The last thing you want is to have one thing, the outer layer too long or then the other, and we have puckering. So I'm just making sure everything's falling into place. That's good. I'm happy with that. You might notice I'm also sewing with the lining side facing up. One of my reasonings for that is this doesn't stretch as much as the outer material, and it'll help stabilize the bottom for me as I'm sewing this. I always like having the more stable material on the top when I sew, if I have a stable and a less stable together. Okay, there, 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 there. Examining what I've got here now. Let's see how this is looking. Okay, this side's looking really good. I like this side. As we come over to this side, there's, for some reason, we've got all this puckering. The layers underneath our puckering, so I'm going to lift that up and we're going to see what's going on so we can get that smoothed out. There we go. Let's see. Releasing what I just sewn in and basted. And let me see what's happening with this. All right. Put that there, there, there. And where our issue is in the first place, the original material and the outer material, there's too much of the lining material in behind, and that's what's puckering. So I'm going to release her basting in here that's holding that together so that I can get that lined up better, because otherwise we're going to get a lot of puckering from the two layers. And if it's not laying flat from the original, then it's not going to lay flat for us, so we've got to get that fixed right now. All right. So we released there. This is the sheer material, and then they're lining underneath, and right away we need to get that smoothed out first and then line into place the right way. Just want to see how it's going over there. We're closing in today on our 2 hours. So I'm happy with what I've got done so far. I'm still checking here This has a similar dilemma. The outer material is not the same width as the under material, so we're going to have to make an adjustment with that, just to make sure that's nice and smooth before we finish sewing that down. We can see here how on this side that fits really nice, but this side, the original wasn't right. And you know, this could have been another reason why this dress just wasn't selling, because someone's going to be trying on a dress like this and they're going to be thinking, how come it's puckering? How come it's not laying as nice as it should? With a Pride, we want to have those nice, smooth, flat seams. No puckers, nothing bending under her bust line. You want a nice, smooth seam. So we'll open this up and we'll see what we can do to adjust that. There we go, that's better there. And in that other part too, we are going to take the iron and we're going to give that a good steam afterwards too and make sure that's lying nice and smooth. Okay, good. And our final step for today, we're going to take our good lining, right sides together on our outer material. We're going to finish off the side seams, give a nice clean seam down along here, and we're going to do an edge stitch. Get everything flipped around, and then at that point we will assess our work. Once again, we're going to start at the neckline, making sure all our seams are lining up, and I'm opening out my seam allowances for here. I'm not running up to the iron right now with that. We are going to do a nice 1/2-inch seam allowance. And make sure everything's lying flat. Raw edges even, making sure all our side seams and everything, bust seams are lined up. And down to the center back. And I'm not going to finish off the bottom yet. My reasoning for that is I have not decided exactly, I don't have a ribbon quite yet ready for us to put into this edge that we can finish this off, so I am not going to be working with that quite yet. I just want to get these underarm seams in place. That's our lining sewn there. Oh, obviously I missed my stitches there. We'll get that back in. Get my thread broke. Something went awry. There we go. We're going to put a row of edge stitching, and what this will do is we're going to press our seam allowance towards the lining, and we're going to do a nice clean row of top stitching, 1/8 of an inch on the lining, and this holds our lining into place and keeps it from peeking out on the good side. There we go, nice. This will make the whole dress look nice and new. A row of edge stitching, so when that seam gets flipped in like that, keeps it from peeking out. We are going to do the same for the other side, right sides together. Seam allowance. Make sure on my lining, this is my good lining, the lining that will be touching my client's skin. seams are pressed out nicely. Make sure my hangers aren't getting caught into my seam. And we'll do our edge stitching with this as well, pressing the seam allowance towards the lining and just about 1/8 of an inch from the seam. This is looking really nice. And I want you to look at it this way. We started this dress at 10 o'clock. It's almost noon. We've got this whole new bodice. And we did this in 2 hours. We cut a new lining, added a new shaping on the inside. What's going to be a bonus now is that we won't be able to see through the gown at this point, and that's a good thing will be a good thing for our bride. But just to kind of give you an idea of where we're at, there. So now we are back. We can put our collar back on, but I'm going to wash the collar, like I said. We have our nice lining on the inside. I'm going to go to the iron. We're going to get that all nice and pressed open and smooth, because that way we can get this all nice and basted, and it'll look nice and finished on this side. I will be adding, like I said, a little facing on the bottom. We'll be sewing that through the neck, but that'll give that a nice clean finish. Add a nice ribbon so that that can be tied around somebody's waist. But no, it's coming along nicely. And what's most important, we have that inner layer of construction that is giving the boning, is giving the garment some nice shape, and it's going to give us those nice crisp lines that we're going to be looking for as the bride's wearing this. So. I don't have my mannequin body here, but none of my mannequins fit this little tiny dress. Isn't that cute? Slipped in. And we will get our cups in, and I haven't quite decided whether my cups are going to go inside my layers or whether I'm going to have my cups on the outside. But I do want to show you what it would look like if we did get a cup in there. Cups are another area where this is going to help with our shaping when we get a nice cup in there, because that's going to smooth out our materials in here. We'll keep that shaping, but I haven't decided whether I'll probably cover my cups separately and then have it so that the bride can decide whether she wants to have the cup in or whether we're going to tack our cups in on the interior of the dress like that. But I haven't decided that yet. We're not at that point. But we'll leave that at that. I want to thank whoever was able to join today, and then whoever's going to be watching this on the replay. I'm looking forward to when next month we have another video next week, which we're going to be doing a Barcelona dress. But next month, probably within maybe our first or second week on a Saturday, we're going to come back to this. At that point, I will have the bottom finished off in my lace. My collar will be cleaned and put back on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to recut the lining for the skirt so that we can finish that off and then get a new skirt ready. And we'll actually have these as 2 pieces. and it's going to give a lot more versatility to the garment. I want to be able to see it when it's all finished with the two pieces together, but also if I can find a nice little tiny petite model, then maybe we'll also see the top with a nice dress pant, and then maybe even the skirt somehow, that we can style that with the skirt on something else. But I want to thank everyone for joining me today. And yes, if you have any comments, if you have any questions, please do be sure to put them in the comments, and I will get back to them. And thank you for joining today.